Hi, I'm Brad Thomas, joined with Vaughn Dalzell and Eric Froton, and this is the National Championship Live Betting Q&A. As we go through this, I want you guys to prepare your questions, smash the like button, and enjoy talking about college football for the last time this season. I'm going to kick it over to you, Vaughn. Vaughn, how was your weekend? We're doing this on a Monday, so I didn't get to see your beautiful face on Saturday.
Yeah. Oh, I've been enjoying it. Of course, my Steelers, they got the dub, but they didn't make the playoffs. So a little salty this morning, but at the same time, we got a great college football game on that we're all expecting fireworks and plenty of props and plays. But it's been a terrific college football season. I meant everything I said at the end of our last show, and excited to be here with you guys one last time before we get everything we want next season, right?
Oh, yeah. A little squad ride today, huh?
That's the idea, boys. Absolutely. National championship game. Plenty of bets. My gosh, this is the biggest slate we've had for any game. It always is every season, but it's fun to see defensive props and kicker props and everything you can pretty much come up with props. So this is our Super Bowl, and I'm excited to dig in.
Yeah, this should be fun. Let's go ahead and kick things off. So I'm going to set up the stage for you guys. Georgia, 12.5-point favorite, taking on TCU. Total set at 63. Georgia is looking to be the first team to win back-to-back national championships since the Alabama team did it in 2011, 2012. And TCU looking to be the first team to be unranked in the preseason and win the national championship since 1990. We're going to kick it off with our best bets. Eric, you are the leader in the clubhouse. Go ahead and give us your best bet.
Yes, I'm going to go with Georgia wide receiver Lad McConkey. He opened at 36.5 is where he was kind of like hanging around. That's where he ended up. He opened at 46. Ended up down around that 36.5 mark after that open. Got pushed down. Now has come back up, actually. Is at 40.5 on FanDuel. Is at 39.5 on DraftKings. Now, the reason why I think this is a good deal is because McConkey, while for the first 12 weeks of the season, was a very solid, dependable check down / if you need a first down for 8 yards, he'll get you 9. Just a very important, dependable safety valve in that offense. But he got injured against Georgia Tech in the final regular season game. Only played a few snaps, I believe under 10. And then, had a little bit of time before the conference championship. Ended up playing in the conference championship against LSU, which was a 50-30 game. Logging plenty of snaps, caught 5 passes and was a factor in that contest. However, afterwards, at the very end of the game, you saw him take a shot and he was limping. You could tell he was definitely affected. That Georgia Tech injury had, in fact, while he was able to overcome and play, it was a hindrance to his production. Now, in the offseason, the lead up to the college football playoff game against Ohio State, Georgia had around 27 practices. McConkey didn't make hardly any. I believe only practiced, the week leading up to the game. 2 or 3 practices before kickoff, he was able to get out there and go through the motions, but as we saw during the contest, he only got 2 receptions and they were for -1 yards. So he was using a very, the screens, the bubble screens, little shots, jet sweeps, stuff like that. It was manufactured touches, really, where he was getting looked at. And 1 deep shot downfield on a offsides penalty he knew was a free play that he didn't get connected with. But that was really the only shot that he got downfield. Now, that being said, he did catch in the fourth quarter after Arian Smith got his jailbreak long touchdown reception, nobody around him. McConkey caught the 2-point conversion right on the goal line, and he just kind of did a quick square out, caught the ball, and immediately he got submarined. And after that catch, you see him attempting to walk to the sidelines. And he was clearly not right, clearly not moving well. And while he did get out there for the final series, he looked like he was just running decoy routes. So I am backing, the 46.5 is where I got it at on FanDuel at the open. Again, got down to 36.5, currently standing at 39 and 40.5. I do think that still represents value at the 40.5 mark. It's going to be a road too far for, I think, him to get up into that range because of the way he was moving, because the lack of practice time, because of the lack of production in the last game. numerous knee problems. We heard about it, all through the end of the season. So that is going to be my best bet. Currently 14-3 on the best bets, looking to go 15-3. It's been an incredible season on that front. I hope that I've helped to make some of you, profitable. So let's go get that best bet with Lad McConkey under.
When you posted that in our thing, I was excited because I was like, wow, I really like that. I don't know how much I love betting 200s on wide receivers in the same game, but this is absolutely a situation where both could hit. Vaughn, go ahead and tell us your best bet.
All right, we're going to try and finish off strong in the season. We're going with a guy that everybody loves this season. That's going to be Stetson Bennett. So this was 269.5 when we all talked about it last week. Moved up to 272.5. Now we're seeing 275.5 on FanDuel, 278.5 on DraftKings. So make sure you guys shop around, see what you can get. PointsBet, also another book that has player prop options. But Stetson Bennett, second straight national championship, like Brad said. I mean, obviously he had a pretty good showing last year against Alabama. But I look at him, he's going to air it out more, in my opinion. You look at the 5 biggest games this season and the role that he's played. We're talking about Ohio State, Oregon, Florida, LSU, and Tennessee. He went for 274 plus in 4 of those 5 games. The only game he didn't was Tennessee. And then you look at what J.J. McCarthy just did to this TCU defense. I mean, we don't know how TCU got here. We all say it's been a magnificent season, and it's been just mesmerizing to watch them play. But I still don't have any faith in either defense in this game. I think Stetson Bennett will be able to throw for 300-plus yards here. So I like the value at 275.5, 278.5, whatever you can get. And let's finish off strong with our best bets. We started off 0-4. We're looking at 9-8 now. 8,
yeah,
9,
man.
9. So
heck yeah,
let's do it, baby.
I love that. I'm gonna go with my best bet, and it's gonna be a quarterback rushing. I try to get away from him, but right now Max Duggan on DraftKings is 27.5. I'm taking his rushing over. Man, I love this play for multiple reasons. Number one, we've talked about this multiple times, but since Nolan Smith has gone down for Georgia, their pressure rate dropped from being top 10 in the country to barely sniffing 40th in the country in pressure rate. What does that mean? That means they're not getting the sacks, not getting the pressure on the quarterbacks that they absolutely want to. It's Georgia. So yes, they're still going to have those times where they're going to play lockdown coverage, and there will be some pockets for Max Duggan to run. What I also like about this line here is we witnessed in the Peach Bowl, C.J. Stroud, a quarterback, mind you, who ran second, passed first every single game that he played, run for over 30 yards. Why? Because you have lanes to run and take the first down. When you play in these do or die big game moments, and you are the focal point of your team, you are the leader, and you see those chains right there, and you know how important every single first down is, you move the chains, especially with your legs. And now back onto Max Duggan. We look at Duggan throughout the season. He's cleared this number time and time again. We watched the Michigan game. He was carving him up with his legs. He ran the ball 15 times for 57 yards. Kansas State, we watched that. And I actually want to talk about the Kansas State more as a closer resemblance to this game, not necessarily because Kansas State's defense is comparable to that of Georgia, but I think the score line or the game script is going to be a little bit more similar with Georgia taking the lead. Max Duggan going to have to move the ball. They're going to abandon the run game a little bit more than they want to. I'm not saying this is going to be a blowout by any means, but I do think Max Duggan's going to be in that video game mode. When you want to win a national championship, you put blood, sweat, tears, and your body on the line. That's why I like his over. Avoiding the sacks is going to be good here, but at 27.5, I'm going to probably get unruly and hammer this responsibly. But this is the line that I really like as my best bet.
Yeah, and we kind of talk about quarterbacks too that face defenses that get pressure a lot and how it forces them to run. Because of course you might be a little nervous that Max Duggan will get sacked once or twice tonight, more than likely. But at the same time, there's times he'll be running for his life. And I looked at a couple of numbers, Brad, that kind of back that up because Georgia as a team against traditional dropbacks, they're getting 45% pressure rate, which is 14th in the country. Well, Max Duggan isn't a traditional drop back quarterback. He does a lot of RPOs, a 1-step, 2-step drops, and that makes up 45% of his throws. So I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Max Duggan to do RPOs and run, but also scramble out of the pocket with pressure. So definitely like this play.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned the Nolan Smith factor, Brad, because if we're looking at props, and the great thing about the national title game is for the first time all season and the last time all season, we get defensive props and we get just a whole array of different options. Now, if you look at the sack props that are currently being put out by FanDuel, because DraftKings doesn't have them out, you have Jalen Carter is Georgia's has the best odds to record a sack for the Georgia defense, and we know Jalen Carter obviously is a top 10 NFL draft pick, but look, he's a 3-tech. He's an interior defensive lineman. Typically, when you see these, the sack lines, it's always an edge player who has the best odds. But Mykel Williams, Jason Dumas-Johnson, both of them have lower odds than Jalen Carter, and a lot of that has to do with, look, you had Trayvon Walker last year on the outside. Year before, you had Azeez Ojulari, who's out there terrorizing defenses from the outside linebacker position now for the New York Giants. So they had those collapsing, the rushers who can run that loop. He had a nice wide array and a skill set to be able to really collapse that pocket and bring the quarterback stepping up into Jalen Carter. That's not the case this year. Yeah. They graduate 8 players to the NFL, many of them in the first or second round. So, that has taken a, somewhat of a hit on their havoc rate as discussed, but it speaks to your point, Brad, where, are they going to be able to get the kind of heat that they did last year where they were just dominating that front? Because we saw TCU, their offensive line, performed extremely well against Michigan. No doubt about that. We saw Amari DiMarcado take over for Kendre Miller and just run for 150 plus yards. So it'll be interesting to see that dynamic and how it affects both quarterbacks, specifically Duggan's rushing.
Yeah, I'll say this last thing because, Eric, I know you might remember this. Last year in the national championship game for Alabama, Georgia, we all liked Bryce Young's under rushing yards. He ended up with negative 37 against Georgia, getting sacked multiple times. That won't happen with Max Duggan today.
Correct. It's going to be, you got to think they'll probably get a couple. It's just how it is Georgia. But, exactly. I think it'll be competitive.
Someone asked me this. What if this is a TCU Texas type game, 5 sacks, Max Duggan, 41 rushing yards? Yeah, that's a good point to bring up. But if we remember that Texas game, TCU had their lunch. It wasn't necessarily a must go win this game with your legs situation for Max Duggan. That was at home for Texas. Like, I just think that just a different environment, different atmosphere, different pressure rate. It's gonna. These games can always happen. Like, you can always have one of these situations. I'll give a good example. The Wake Forest game, where you take a crap ton of sacks, you end up losing your under. This happened with USC when they played in the Pac-12 championship. They're always running.
God, did it ever happen with Caleb Williams? That was the worst rushing under I've ever seen in my life.
Ever.
Yeah, 91 yards in the first half rushing. I'm like, we're good. It was at 25.5. Not so fast. He gets injured and he just gets sacked like 5 times in the second half, and it destroyed that rushing over. My gosh. I'm with you. Yeah,
you always run the risk, but I'm just not seeing, like, Eric put the best point out there. Like, you're getting guys for Georgia to record a sack at like plus 180, plus 160. If you want to put this in perspective, when you think about NFL, the top linemen on their team, defensive linemen, are like minus 150 to record a sack. You might get like a plus 120. So just to put it in a little perspective, this can always happen, but I'm just liking Max Duggan to do more on his legs. I expect a big game. Like, I expect him to clear this number like by a wide margin.
It's interesting. Lizzie Lemonade. Well done. Love the name. They mentioned the TCU Texas game, and that's actually a game I've mentioned in the lead up to this contest as well a few times, because look, if you look at TCU season, that's the outlier game. 17-10 victory over the Longhorns, just slow, grinding pace. And what they did extremely well. Yeah, like, what did they do? They shut down Bijan Robinson no other team did this season. They had 22 carries, 28 total rushing yards for Texas. They had, I believe, 199 total yards in general. Didn't even have 200 total yards in the game. So, like, really an anomaly because TCU has scored at least 28 points in every single other game all season long, except for that Texas game where the defense was just so suffocating that they were able to control the ball for 38 and a half minutes of clock. Do I think that game script is repeatable against Georgia? The answer is no.
No.
Absolutely not. Do I see a 38 and a half minute, TOP getting pitched by the Horned Frogs? It's not realistic. So game script wise, I don't think that's exactly comparable, but it is a great example of what TCU can do when they want to do it. Despite the fact that Sonny Dykes is an air raid disciple, tried and true. We saw Davis Webb for the New York Giants yesterday. Former Sonny Dykes, 4,000-yard passer for the University of California. So that was a real treat for us college fantasy guys who got to see a little Davis Webb time. But, this TCU team, while their identity, it was slinging the ball around for the last decade for Dykes, they're better running the ball than they are throwing the ball. And I think when, chips are down and you're in a game of this magnitude, teams do revert to what they do best and what their kind of identity has been. And as you see, they didn't beat Michigan by throwing it all over the field. Max Duggan wasn't this incredible maestro, slicing up that defense. It was, a lunch pail effort. It was a pair of defensive touchdowns. So you make a great point, Blues Lemonade, in terms of how that went for Duggan. They did need to use him in every fashion. They do more RPOs. They had to grind out yards any way they can. And that's when they rely on his rushing ability. And look, I think they're going to have to grind out yards any way they can against Georgia today.
Yep. Totally agree. Let's move over to our next plays. Vaughn, give me another play that you like in this game.
All right. Well, if you guys haven't saw our NBC videos, we've been doing bull videos every single week. And we all like something intriguing about this game. I got the over 63. I would shop around. I'm not afraid of 63.5 in this game. But as you said, the outlier of TCU season was that Texas game. As good as Georgia's defense has been, we know they've taken step backs tremendously at points in this year. And I'll bring up the last game because C.J. Stroud on throws of 15 or more yards downfield against Georgia, he went 7 for 8. Garrett Nussmeier for LSU went 7 for 13. And when you start looking at recently what's been Georgia's issue defensively, it's been that secondary. So I definitely think Max Duggan is going to be able to, have a day, whether it's with his legs, with his arms. And we talked about those drop back numbers. I'm sure TCU will be coming up with intriguing, exciting plays to get the ball out of Max Duggan's hands quickly because the longer he's in the pocket, better chance of him getting sacked by that Georgia defense. So I'm looking at the over in general. We've seen sparks fly in the college football playoffs. I don't expect it to stop here. I like Georgia's team total over 37.5. TCU's is pretty low at 24.5. I mean, you could play either of those, but I like the game over.
Hey, I like that. I'm going to go into my correlated play. Make sure you shop this line around. Georgia team total over 37.5. I like points here. So just go ahead and start to talk about this game. We talk about TCU, and one thing we know about TCU is, they can move the ball. Defensively, they weren't terrible, but they weren't great. We want to talk about defensive success rate, 51st in the country. Net points per drive on defense, 47th in the country. And one fun fact that I like about this Georgia team, only 4 teams in the country average 200 on the ground and over 265 through the air. They're a complete team. 9 times this season, they hit 38 or more points. And the one of those misses was at 37 points exactly. One of those misses was 33, where they absolutely dominated Sanford, stopped caring. So a lot of times this season, you will see big games from Georgia because they score points. I don't think this is going to be a TCU that rolls over and just gets kicked to the dirt, which I think helps the over. I think playing indoors helps the over. Playing in California helps the over. Georgia's going to score points. That's not me saying TCU is going to win this game or Georgia's going to win this game, but we will see fireworks in this game. Eric, do you have a play?
Yeah,
I do. And it kind of speaks a little bit of what you're saying with Georgia, where, I do like the play you're talking about, them scoring points. However, where I mentioned earlier, the last segment, TCU can score points too. And, this is the 13th ranked offense in terms of total performance, in the country, averaging 3.2 points per drive. That's 12th best in the country. In terms of EPA per play, expected points added, 16th. So they've proven on offense, look, they can go out and they can score points. I really don't have many qualms about that. I do love seeing the way, because the big question we had going to Michigan is can they get down in the trenches as a Big 12 program with a Big 10 mean, nasty, ugly, grimy defense, and they did. They were able to win the line of scrimmage. So I do think they're able to score some points, and I think that factors into my play. So my favorite bet surrounding the game is Georgia to win by 1 to 13 points. Now, we know that the spread was 12.5 points heading into today. It's now ticked up to 13.5. So clearly Vegas thinks that this is going to be a game that's going to be around that 2-touchdown, 10 to 14 point threshold. I think this is a competitive game. I don't think you're going to see a blowout. I think that Georgia's defense isn't the vaunted unit it was in years past, last year, for instance, but it is a solid unit. We know that TCU, their strength is going to be their ability to score points. Not a great defense, and you spoke to that as well, Brad. The success rate, not exactly exceptional, 53rd in EPA per play. Yards per play, just a very blanket metric, 5.5 yards per play they're allowing. That's 49th in the country. Not the big, eye-popping defensive performances you want to see from a team like this, and that just breeds competitive games. Yeah. Look, we saw TCU, 4 different games this season. They had win expectancy under 50%. They won 3 of those games, but they play close games. 28 points scored in every game except for Texas. All these things kind of factor in. And the real kicker is, sure, is it possible they win by 1 to 13? Sure. But what I really like is if they do win, just win by 1 to 13 and just don't blow them out, you're getting plus 160 odds on FanDuel right now. I mean, I think that that's the most logical outcome, is a close game with Georgia and TCU. I think this will be competitive. I think that you're going to see it in this range of outcomes. And you're getting 1.5 times plus your money on that. I just think that's a value add that you're getting real EV out of the gate. And is frankly what I think is the most likely scenario in this game to happen. Take the plus odds, plus 160. Get it.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Let's move over to some more plays. Running short on time. So I want to make sure we get all our plays in. And at the end, I want to make sure we each give a winner, because I know a lot of people are going to want to know who's going to win. I'll go with my next play because I remember Shane asked specifically what was the under receiver over. I'm actually going with Brock Bowers under 66.5. I will play it to 62.5. It's available on FanDuel. Brock Bowers is a 66.5 number. Hasn't hit this number all but 2 times the entire season. Yeah. We talked about this in our video where you're going to do a good mixture of running the ball and passing the ball, but how they're going to pass the ball is going to be on the perimeter, out wide. Brock Bowers is going to get his targets, probably 6 targets in this game. Small routes. When Brock Bowers has hit this number, it's because he's had those 50, 60-yard chunk plays. You don't want to get in national championship. Your entire goal is not to get beat over the top. No big plays. Those big plays, why? Because they create momentum. In the hardest thing to come back is national championship momentum. Ask Alabama. When they played Georgia last year, Alabama was playing solid football. Then Georgia made a couple stops, the interception, boom, bye-bye Alabama. No matter how much you want to come back from that, it's too powerful to give your opponent those big plays. Big plays will happen, but you try to limit him as much as possible. Give me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's funny. In the preseason, I took Brock Bowers' under receiving yardage, which was listed at 850 yards. For a tight end, that is an extremely ambitious amount of yardage because they're simply not targeted downfield in the same way that receivers are. So they can't get those chunk plays. Now, he's great in terms of those seam routes, Brock Bowers, and he can bounce off tacklers, which is pretty much how he gets his big plays. It's not like he's running past people. He's creating bad tackling angles and using his, admittedly incredible athleticism in order to extend those plays. So, with Bowers, I faded him in the preseason. You have to remember he is a tight end. As athletic as he is, he's still a tight end, and it's hard to hit these. This is a pretty aggressive number on Bowers, as you said. I will also be back in the under, especially if you get it at that 66.5 mark. why not?
Yes, sir. Eric, go ahead and move into one of your player props.
Sure. And this is one that for our article that we had put out that you had just mentioned for this game that you all can take a look at. It's still evergreen until kickoff. Adonai Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, who is the number one wide receiver, in my estimation, of Georgia. Now, last year, he was a true freshman, 3-star wide receiver who had a snaps restriction because of a non-football injury concern where they were managing his reps. Still came out and started the third game of his freshman season as a 3-star recruit in a loaded Georgia wide receiver room and started every game thereafter for Georgia during their national title run where they had, one of the greatest defenses of all time. A.D. Mitchell was out there on the field and an important cog in that passing attack. Fast forward to this season, has a great offseason. Coming out of camp, he is the talk of the Dogs camp. He is the wide receiver one, the alpha dog in the room that has established himself. Everybody's expecting a big season. He has a great game against Oregon, catches 5 or 6 passes for a touchdown. But in game 2 against FCS program Samford, he catches 1 4-yard pass and goes down. And we don't see him again in any extended capacity until the playoff game. He came in and made an appearance in the conference championship, and he ran some routes, but it wasn't really until the practice sessions leading up to the bowls that he played. He made all the practices of the bowls. He was ready to go, gassed up. Everything you hear about him is that he was out there showing out in practice, and we got that performance against Ohio State in the game script where they had to throw a lot. 7 targets, led the team. 29 routes, led all receivers. Bowers had 35, but he had 29 routes, and he caught 3 passes for 42 yards and a touchdown. I think that was just scratching the surface here. You're going to see him, I think, go 50 yards or more. I have an alt line on him at 70 yards, which I caught at plus 280. It has since obviously gone up. You're not going to find that line, but I do think that you're going to see a real show-out performance out of Adonai Mitchell, best wide receiver on the best team in the country. Even though he went, when I put this out on that article, I put it out and I touted it on my video, he went from 34.5 yards to 47.5 receiving yards right now. You can get it at 42.5 on FanDuel, or I think it's FanDuel where he's 42.5 right now.
It's DraftKings.
Excuse me, it's DraftKings. I forget which one. They're
minus 145 odds to the over, so that is moving.
And yeah, I put that out.
Minutes.
Exactly. He was at 36.5 when I put out the video. Now at 47, and it's still juiced, to the minus 145. So that tells you all you need to know. I love it. Adonai Mitchell, and also great buying opportunity. His reception started out at 2.5 receptions. That was an absolutely criminal line. It is up to 3.5 now. You saw that. That's over in the past day where we've seen that kind of correct. I put that out as well earlier on some channels. I think there's some real value in Adonai Mitchell right now.
Would you play the over 3.5 or plus 112 on FanDuel?
Yeah, at 3.5 plus 112. Wow, that's great. You're getting that. And again, that was on FanDuel yesterday, 2.5. So it's gone up there for a reason. I still think it's a play, especially at plus money. Still think it's a play.
All right.
Yeah, I think you could get creative with Mitchell here. I'm trying to build it out to see you get 3 receptions and 40 yards. I think you get plus money. Let me just finish building this out for anybody who likes building these alts. I'm on let's see, receiving yards. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, actually, I will tell you in a second. Let's move over to your next bet because I just accidentally closed out of the page.
Fair enough. I'll handle this while you go and do that. I like Kenny McIntosh as well. We're going to look at the receptions, and reception lines are great because you usually during the season only get them on Prize Picks, which is a parlay only minor sort of a book. Specialized in prize pick, player props only. So over there, 2.5 receptions. He was there. McIntosh was at 3.5 receptions all week. For some reason, FanDuel had him at 2.5 all week long leading up to this. He has since gone up to 3.5. If you look, when I last checked, he was 2.5 on Prize Picks. It may have bumped up to 3, but I just think that's you get at 3.5 receptions, you have to take the under. Frankly, 2.5 is even a good deal on the under. And the reason why is last game got 6 targets in a script where we all know Ohio State got up. Georgia had to throw. They're making back. They're in comeback mode. They're in rush. And it was really the first time all season they've really been put in that position. Hence, 6 targets for Kenny McIntosh. In the previous 7 games leading up to today, he had only gotten 2 targets in 6 of those 7. The only game he didn't get, he got 3 in that other one. And he's only hit 2 receptions tops in each of those 7 games leading up to the game where they had the most pass-oriented game plan of the season by force. Nothing they could do. They had the vaunted Ohio State offense to deal with. So I just think you're getting, if you can find it at 3.5 still, which I hope it is still out there, you have to hit Kenny McIntosh. I still think it's probably a good go at 2.5 based on recent usage. And that I think game script wise, we're not going to have them airing it out. They're not going to get down 2 touchdowns to TCU in my estimation. Does it happen? Maybe, but I do like that under on Kenny McIntosh, especially if you can get it 3.5 receptions, which I saw it at FanDuel lately.
Yeah, I've seen FanDuel as of the past 15 minutes. It was like minus 130-ish, moving towards that. It's minus 180 now.
Dude.
On the under 3.5.
Yeah, that's the world we're living in. Mm-hmm.
That is the world.
Sorry, everyone. I hope you get in early. It happens.
But I mean, I still think you could parlay that with something else that you've given out here and get some value as well. So
right on.
Yeah.
I would do that.
Let's move.
What you got, Brad? You got any more plays?
Actually, I do. Yeah. Let me give out. I have one more play for the game. It's a little parlay. TCU plus 24.5 over 57.5 points. Like Eric mentioned, TCU is going to keep this close, and TCU is going to score points. I'm already on Georgia's over. This is not going to be a stale game, and I like TCU's team total over. If TCU hits their team total over, that would require Georgia to put up 50 points, 50 plus points for TCU not to hit this. This was a safer way for me to take TCU's team total and the over at the same time, which is why I took this parlay. I took this over on FanDuel for anybody who was wondering what book this is on.
I like it. It'd be a travesty if it didn't work out, but I think you should be in the clear.
Yeah.
24.5 is pretty nice.
24.5 should be enough. Yeah.
Let's answer some questions before we get out of here. Go ahead and tackle this one. Either one of you two. Will Max throw for more than 230 yards?
You get 230. That's a good line. Frankly, that's what it opened at. I've seen it take all the way up to 240. I believe it's 235 hanging out there at DraftKings right now. That's a good line. If you can get it at 230.5 or 229.5, wherever that might be, that was pretty much where it opened at. So it looks like it might have corrected down. I do think that he does hit the 230.5 passing mark. I have a little bit of shares at that particular mark for Mr. Maxey. So I'm in. I think that's, and if you look at the way the TCU season has gone, when there have been competitive games for TCU, he hits it almost every time. I believe it's only one time that it's been within 2 scores. And most of their games are competitive because, like, as I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, they've hit 28 points every single game but one all season long. When you have that sort of ability to score and when you're playing where I think that, obviously Georgia is the heavy favorite and should be up to some extent, at least some point in the game, that's going to force him to throw more. I'm in. I'm in on the over. I know I like to go. I try to find every reason to go under, but man, I like these quarterback overs today.
All right. Okay. This is a fun one right here. Which long shot first score do you prefer? Jackson, Davis, or Battle? Wow.
For me, I go dangerous Darius Davis. Probably, he's a return man, so you will get the punt. Sort of, you never know. Maybe you get a punt, you get that sort of added action, and the way the markets have been moving is Darius Davis and Tay Barber both kind of ticked up in the morning trading that what I had seen, and I think that has to do with they're expecting Georgia, it seems, to roll coverage to Quentin Johnson, which is logical, and for Davis or Barber, Tay Barber, the little diminutive slot receivers who do have breakout ability, Davis has got the best big play ability of those secondary receivers for TCU, so he would be my option.
He's 33-1 to score first in this game on FanDuel. That'd be insane. And if you're on DraftKings betting, they have first team touchdown score, so you could pick Georgia's first and TCU's first, rather than playing the overall first touchdown score in that game too.
What's that at? I know it was juiced. Was it plus 150?
The anytime touchdown score for what? TCU to score first in general? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah, it was plus 155 and plus 175 in some places I saw.
Mm.
And Georgia was minus 175 to minus 190.
Yeah, who knows who's going to score? That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, on to Aaron, our boy.
All right. BetRivers has MVP market Stetson minus 152, Duggan plus 400, Mitchell plus 2,500, Bowers plus 500. I think it's going to be Stetson, but if you play Stetson at minus 152, you'd probably be better off playing his passing over at minus 114, minus 115. I don't think he hits his passing over and not. I mean, I don't think he goes under and wins the MVP. I think they're kind of correlated there. I would probably get a little creative trying to find this, but this is, if Georgia wins, this is Stetson's award. It's so
Both
much
quarterbacks award.
Yeah, it's so much that has happened through his career, being the walk-on and everything. So,
well, you know my flyer. Give me some AD Mitchell plus 2,500 flyer. You know how I feel about that. So that would be my call. I can't help it. Obviously, minus 152, it's tough there for Stetson. And if TCU wins, Duggan's getting it. But I think we get a big AD Mitchell game. Maybe I'm a little bullish.
Let's answer one more question. Do you like Duggan over 1.5 passing TDs? Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'd imagine so. He's hit this in 5 of his last 8. I don't know. I got to figure out what the number is. I think
minus 110, minus 110, and plus 102 on FanDuel. So
I'd probably play it for plus money. I mean, he's hit like 5 in his last 8, maybe it might be 5 in his last 9, which is not as good of a hit rate.
I wouldn't be opposed to playing a Max Duggan rushing touchdown either today. Like, I definitely think that he could easily, get into the end zone from a short yards distance, take a scramble. But that's also another way of hedging because that's plus 600 compared to the plus 102 you get on FanDuel. So, how these quarterbacks are.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with Duggan, he had, for the first 8 games of the season, he had 2 touchdowns every game. Every single game. But then 3 of the last 5, he's had 1 touchdown passing: Texas, Baylor, and Kansas State. 3 against Iowa State, 2 against Michigan, with those 2 interceptions. I'm going to go – I'm leaning under on the passing touchdowns a little bit on Max Duggan. It depends on where you get it. Yeah, it's plus money, so, that's cool. Go with the plus juice. That's fine with me.
Okay, last one. I said this was the last one. This is the last one because I was looking for Kendre Miller updates. I know, Eric, you're a little bit closer to that news than I am. I didn't hear anything but coach speak. All I was seeing was coach speak.
Nothing on the domestics with Kendre Miller. I have been waiting for those running back props to come out. They have not thus far done it. Yeah, my gosh, you cannot take his over at 78.5. You can't. You simply can't. He didn't play. He got 5, maybe tops 8 carries last game, and it was all DeMarcado in the second half. I've been waiting for this line to come out. That is an absolute hammer. The 78.5 under. He's a game time decision. You can't go over it. 79 yards on a game time decision when he was hurt the week before. Easy under. Easy. Pound it.
Easy under.
I actually
he probably doesn't even play. Kill that.
I actually wanted that to be my best bet because there's some insane defensive numbers. KJ Miller, 1.6 yards before contact, before the line of scrimmage, 61st in the country, 8.9 yards when he crossed the line of scrimmage without getting hit, which is 16th in the country. Georgia leads the country in yards, adjusted yards before contact. Michigan was ranked 58th. So this is literally not the match for KJ Miller. It's the Max Duggan game, not the KJ Miller game.
Yep.
Yes. All right, before we get out of here, quick, just one word answer. Georgia or TCU, Vaughn? Who do you have winning the national championship?
TCU.
Whoa.
Eric, who do you have winning the national championship?
I'm going with Georgia, just like my plus 160 to win by 1 to 13 points. Cash that.
I have Georgia winning the national championship. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into the live college football Q&A. Be sure to stay on our YouTube so you can watch Bet the Edge starting at 10:45. For Eric Froton, Vaughn Dalzell, I am Brad Thomas. Thank you so much. Best of luck today. Hope you win a ton of cash.
Go TCU. Finally win one for me.